As I get to the end of the restoration, I need to put the glove box back in with the lid. Now here it is back in place at the end of the session. Now I'd had the wood veneer redone on this lid and it looks lovely, and I've put the lock back on. I've done a separate video on how to rekey that lock to your ignition key so it matches in case you've got a different one, and it should slide freely. Be very careful removing the locking mechanism because the black plastic surrounds snap very easily, and I tried carpenter's pliers but ultimately used a couple of screwdrivers top and bottom to push it out. Now these are the 4 tabs which are gently bent into position to secure the wood. The main issue that you're going to have with these glove box lids is the breakage of the spring on the back of this tab, which normally recenters it. Luckily, 2 donor car glove boxes I have had intact springs, and I'm going to borrow one of them. Now these may need to come off. You can see how it recenters, and that's not overly complicated. I'll show you how to do that later on. So I'm just having a look at these donor lids, which you'll notice there is actually some differences between variations. Now I happen to actually find a new backing from a friend in Australia who has sent me this one here. So I'm going to put this one on, and here it is, brand new piece of plastic backing. Not a part which typically gets a lot of wear, but anyway, it wasn't overly expensive. It doesn't come with the spring. Again, that is the bit which typically breaks, and so that locking tab doesn't recenter. Now the spring goes over that male portion there when you take it off, and you may be able to find a donor lid on eBay for that spring if you need it. You're not going to be able to fabricate one. It's kind of unique in its shape. So time to start reassembling things. Now to get that locking mechanism off, just take the circlip off. It's not overly complicated. Then this portion just rotates in one direction. There's a cutout to allow it to come off down the bottom, you can see. So now that can feed out. And the spring is still attached here on the back. You can see that sort of pitchfork-like spring which sits on the locking tab, and it flexes, which forces it to go back. So to put this on, you can see how it roughly lines up. I'm going to gently put the upper tab underneath first, spin it over, and then it'll go down, and then we'll put the circlip on once we make sure the spring is over the black plastic bit and recenters it. That's a very rewarding thing. Again, the main caution in this whole saga is actually getting the lock off if you need to repair it, because getting that off was really difficult and challenging, and I did snap another donor lid trying to do that. So you can see how that recenters. That's how it's actually supposed to be, and you can see the spring remains in its position where you do that on one side with the other side flexing. So I'm just making sure that that tab is on. I don't want that flying off behind. Now of note, you can see how the various portions go together. So the hinged arms fit through that and then are secured on the opposite side with a small plastic tab. These legs on these point in the same direction, that is off to the left, and you'll see what I mean. One side has a shorter locking pin, which is only accessible once this is removed with the 4 screws. The other side, here's a shorter position, but the other side has a longer tab which actually goes in through the outer side. You can see here it's actually accessible with the glove box down. So once you're comfortable, you've got it the right way around, put that through, and this is just a shorter tab, and excuse the one-handed filming, it's a little bit awkward. So I'm just going to pick up the shorter tab, there you go, and that's going to simply click in from inside to out. And apologies again for the one-armed filming. So we just put that in, line up the hole in the arm, and click. That went in pretty firmly. So that's the outer side. The inner side, I believe it was, has a longer one. And you can see this has a little tab. And you'll see how this tab has to fit in to pass it from outside to in. So you can see there's a groove for it to fit in. It won't go fully in if you don't line it up. It goes through, and then you're just going to rotate that little tab over to lock it in, or you can screw it from the outside with a flathead. So there we go. It's rotated to the opposite direction. It will now not come out, and the 2 hinge arms are in position. Now those hinge arms are supposed to have some little square or rectangular grommets, I should say. You can see on the left side there is one already being positioned on. So the hinges then go on, and they need to go on in the correct direction. And they're going to get secured on with these circular bolts that you're going to put on with circlip pliers or a chopstick technique with 2 fine screwdrivers. There's going to be 4 Phillips screws to secure the upper edge of the lid. Now what is of note is there's actually different size cup holders on evidently different generations of these lids, which you'll see here. So the new one that I have actually has larger cup holder recesses. They're not deeper, but they're just slightly bigger. And maybe in the 1980s when they went from the tin steel cans to the aluminium ones or something, they thought that'd make them bigger. So you can see that one's only about 6 centimeters diameter, and in contrast the one I'm using has 7 centimeters or so. So anyway, of note, so many variations with these 3 generations of 123 wagons. So here's these circular nuts to go on to get the hinges on. Initially when you put the hinges on you think they are not going to tighten up, but minor firming down of these nuts actually will secure them. And these are adjustable, so you can effectively move the hinges in and out. You'll see later to align your glove box. I just put them on roughly where I thought, and that was fine. Sorry, the one-handed technique is not ideal. The alternative is get 2 fine screwdrivers like that when you're not holding a camera and turn both sides simultaneously clockwise. That'll take them down. So both legs point to the left side there. Get one in at a time, and then rotate the other one in. Once you've also got your grommets on, because they're going to have to get thread through. That is the other side of the internal dash, which receives the glove box hinge screws. You can see there. So the Phillips, 2 per side, secure that. That holds the glove box, which at this point is not perfectly aligned. I've got to put the grommets in around the hinge arms, and you can adjust those to move it in and out. And then that will get rid of, for example, this little gap at the top. You can see that's not appropriate. So I'm going to realign that. So I'm reasonably comfortable there. The switch is in above the central hinge, and you're going to plug the line into that later. The grommets are in. And apologies for the focus on a nighttime video. This is one of those tasks I wanted to finish at night. So the 2 wires for the lamp go into the switch. At this point my car is not wired up, hence it's not working. Have the light out when you slide the glove box in. It won't go in if you try and have it in at the same time. So it's just dangling through. Push that in down over the upper receptacle area, and then there's like the 7 tabs which are going to go in. So these have a female portion which goes in first, and then a male portion which secures them in, and getting those 7 in will straighten up an otherwise wonky looking glove box in many circumstances. So it looks like 4 at the top and 3 at the bottom. So that's looking a bit more like a dash, which needs a good clean up. So that is what activates the light. In my car, which is currently not powered up without the terminals on. And here we are at the end. A task that I was actually a bit worried about getting done, because I thought I was going to have to take the wood off again, and I did not wish to have to take that lock off, because that is just a frightening task. I think the odds of cracking the plastic around that are pretty high, so be cautious if you have to undertake that.